Hey YouTube, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video. Today I have some knives that don't get the credit that they deserve. Okay, so if you watched Donald Trump's acceptance speech, you remember that he kind of overlooked Mike Pence. Well, these are knives that kind of get overlooked. They're not knives that you've never heard of. They just, I feel like, don't get enough attention for how good they really are. Before I get into that list though, I'd like to ask you to comment below for a future video. I'm going to do the top 5 high-end production or limited production mid-tech knives. Okay, and I'm going to lump those all together because I have about the same standards and expectations for those knives, so I don't really separate them carefully. But I'm thinking things like Hinders and Sabenzas and stuff from Ferrum Forge and stuff from Gavco and you know, there are a number of, you know, the Talc and the you know, Les George Talos and VECP. There's a bunch of sort of semi-custom stuff and high-end production stuff. I'd love to hear what you guys think deserve to be the top 5 out of that sort of next step up from production, okay? We're not gonna go to full customs. I don't really do customs, I don't own any. Maybe sometime down the road I'll get some other people to weigh in that do a lot of customs to say, here's my top 5 makers or something. Anyway, that might be a fun video for down the road, but I'd like to ask you guys, what do you think belongs in the top 5 sort of high-end production slash mid-tech knives? Having asked the question, let's go ahead and get to the video that we're going to do now, which is the most overlooked knives. Top 5 overlooked knives, starting with one I don't own and won't own, the KaBar Dozier. Now for me, it's just too small, but I know a lot of people love it. And if you're one of those people, go ahead and weigh in down below and tell us what you like about it. But for me, the knife is just, I can't do under 3.5 inches. I just can't do it. I've tried. So the Dozer will not be a part of my collection, but it's well loved, and you're right, and a number of people commented when I asked this question, which knife is the most overlooked, and so I wanted to go ahead and include it. It is a cool knife. It's available in tons of variations, different blade shapes and different colors. Cool knife, and I definitely appreciate it. And I appreciate how many of you really like it and don't think it gets enough credit. So let's give it some credit right now. Okay, number next. All right, I don't know if we're going 1 to 5 or 5 to 1. Doesn't really matter. But number 4 on my list is the ColdSteel Talwar. Now, I didn't put this at the top of the list because it's fairly well known, but I don't think a lot of people realize how good of a utility tool this is. Okay, it has that very tactical look to it, and it definitely looks like a pretty murdery type of knife, but this sort of Persian style pistol grip knife actually works really well for all kinds of utility tasks. It's got belly, so it works for skinning. It's a very tough blade and blade shape, so it's really good for really those harder tasks that we all have to do. It's definitely got the lock to hold up on that. And the ergonomics on this knife are outstanding. Okay, really comfortable knife, and the way that it fits in your hand, especially in sort of a saber grip, really moves the cutting edge down toward whatever material you're working on, so it allows this to be extremely ergonomic for cutting tasks. So great knife. I definitely think this one does not get as much credit, and I'm gonna do shortly, maybe in the next week or two, a comparison between this and the Recon 1. And there are a lot of areas where I actually think this is nicer than a Recon 1, even though I love the Recon 1. This knife I think will do well in that comparison. So definitely a little overlooked. The next knife on the list, this is one I don't own, but I've had a number of them before, is the Ontario Utilitac. Now, I think the reason this one is overlooked is because the Rat 1 is so popular. So anyone buying a knife from Ontario Knives is probably buying a Rat 1. But the Utilitac is similar construction, really the same construction, just a different shape. The handle, I believe, is more ergonomic. In fact, I would argue that it's much more ergonomic. But it just gets overshadowed by the Rat 1. And if anyone from Ontario Knife Company is watching this, I would love to see the Utilitac offered in the D2 steel. That would be an amazing thing. Why do I think it's overlooked? Well, so what do I love about it? I love the ergonomics on the rounded handle. Now, let me say this. There is an ugly version of the Utilitac 2 with sort of this squared off handle and a weird tanto shaped blade, but the drop point blade and the rounded handle, really comfortable, really useful. So if you haven't got one, if you really like your Rat 1 and you haven't tried a Utilitac, I think it's worth checking out. It is very much overlooked. The next knife on the list, and this one came up in comments, but it was one I was already considering, is the Manix 2 XL. The Spyderco Paramilitary just gets all the love, okay? The Para 2 is a great knife, there's no question, but I carry my Manix 2 much more than my Para 2 because it's bigger and it's got a nice comfortable handle. It carries really easily in pocket, although it is a little thick. Okay, but that's pretty standard for Spydercos because I always have those nice big spider holes. It does have the large, I think 14mm hole, the same as the Para 2. So really nice knife, carries well, performs really well. This blade shape is just really utilitarian. And so I cannot say enough about how much I like this knife, and it's very affordable for what you're getting. S30V steel, pretty large knife. I've seen these go for as low as like 110 bucks. Now I don't see them for that anywhere right now, but if you watch, sales, or if you look at the secondary market, you can pick up Manix 2s for a great price, and they're an outstanding knife. Okay, so Manix 2 XL, definitely underrated or unrecognized, or not as loved as it should be. Finally, I've got a knife that is maybe a bit of a surprise to some of you. This is the RealSteel H6. Now this is a popular knife, but I don't think people realize how good it really is. I've done a comparison video between this and the Rat 1, and I'll link it down below, but this thing is amazing, right? It beats the Rat 1 in every category. Better steel, better blade shape, at least for me, better ergonomics, better materials in the handle. It's G10, really comfortable in hand, much more comfortable than a Rat 1. Absolutely love this knife, and don't think it gets nearly the credit that it deserves, although it does get some credit. Now I will, by the way, if you want to see the comparison video, I'll put a link to it down below, but the H6 from RealSteel is amazing. Now, I want to mention another RealSteel, and I kind of put these as a tie for the top. The S571 Pro is amazing. It's a titanium frame lock, LMAX steel. It flips like a dream. One of the nicest actions I've ever seen, and definitely the nicest action for its price point. I think you can get them for around 180 if there are any out there. Now they only did 600, and I actually emailed RealSteel and they said, no, we're only ever doing 600. Maybe they'll come out with a variant or something with a different colored handle, and I really hope they do. That knife is amazing. What an achievement. They have the rod bearings instead of the ball bearings, and that thing is just it's just excellent. Okay, the only minor complaint I have is the steel is just a little soft, but it holds an edge fine. I used it quite often and only really had to touch it up like one time, and I didn't even do a full-on sharpening. I just sort of honed it a little, and it was razor sharp. So great knife, and definitely deserves some extra attention, along with the H6. Now, I've got a couple of sort of honorable mentions here that I just want to kind of direct you toward before we leave off. The first one is the SOG Zoom. This is a great knife. It's the only SOG I still have in my collection. It's the only one that didn't have quite a bit of blade play. And this is an ongoing thing for me and SOG. I've actually sent knives back to SOG saying, look, they have up and down blade play. And they send them back and they're better, but still blade play. And I'm there going, you can't make it have no blade play? Who's your engineer there? Did they graduate from preschool? It's extremely frustrating, okay? Because when you can buy a $30 or a $15 Gonzo that has solid lockup, there's no reason that a $40, $50, $60, $70, $80, $100 SOG should have any blade play at all. It's just a failure to have good discipline and good manufacturing practices. So This knife is pretty good, and it's the only SOG I have that I can honestly say is pretty good for blade play. It's also really, really fast and really fun to carry and flip and use. Now, one thing, since I've hated on SOG enough, I will give them credit. They do an awesome heat treat. Their Aus-8 steel performs better than any other Aus-8 that in my experience anyway, performs better than any other Aus-8 that I've had, either in ColdSteels or in Ontario or CRKT. Anyone who does Aus-8, I've never seen them never seen it done as well as SOG. So let's give them a little credit. Finally is the broken skull. This is a knife that some people have absolutely hated on. There are a few things, you know, the giant broken skull written over here, I could live without. The blade shape, I don't mind the actual cutting edge, but the way they've done the back spine, I could, again, do without that. But this is a great knife. And, you know, if you like a slim, large knife, again, this is one that really nails a lot of things. And I hate to say this, but to pick on the most popular knife in sort of this category would be the Spyderco Endura, I would say. And this knife just blows the Endura out of the water in blade steel, in slimness, in lightness, in strength. You know, it's even thinner, so it even carries nicer than the Endura does. I know there are a couple issues here. It doesn't look that attractive, but this is a great knife and definitely deserves a little more love than it usually gets. So there you go, guys. Look forward to your comments about the mid-techs below. Thanks for watching, and we will talk to you soon.